You're listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast. We talk with adventurers from around the globe to give you the inspiration you need to get started in the outdoors or keep moving if you're already there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. This is Caleb. In today's revisited episode, Mason interviews Damien Rider. As we enter into road tripping season here in the Northern Hemisphere, I thought it would be fun to play this episode because it's about Damien traveling the 2,500-mile Route 66 on a skateboard, which just sounds wild to me. In addition to that, he also talks about a 500-mile solo paddle, Mattress Marathon, and a 3-ton truck push, not to mention a 7,500-foot hot air balloon jump, and lots more. This episode's packed full of fun and meaning. I hope you enjoy it. Here's Mason.
But welcome to the show, Damien. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Thanks for having.
Yeah. So tell us. You're in Tennessee right now. Tell us what you're doing in Tennessee. By the sound of your accent, you're not from Tennessee.
Nah, just a little outside of Tennessee, just a little south, called a little place called Australia.
There you go.
So I'm just from down under, and come over this way sort of a couple of years ago. I was sort of going back and forth, and then sort of going back and forth from Mexico to here, like Tulum, Mexico. I travel down there a little bit, and I do some training. I train some young local kids in sort of poor communities how to box and sort of pull them out that way a little bit, and run some retreats and stuff down there, but focus on my own training and free diving in the snow days and stuff like that down there. But it's good. Like, the world's starting to open up again, and the travel, the adventure, the extreme sports and everything is starting to pop open again, so which has been good, and which is what's drawn me to here in Memphis, where I'm actually in Nashville for a couple of days, just sort of hanging out, doing some stuff, but sort of based in Memphis while I do this up-and-coming event anyway.
Well, tell us about the up-and-coming event. It involves a hot air balloon. I want to hear what do you got going on, how you feel about it, and what it's going to be.
So what I'm going to be doing in 10 days from today, actually, well, over the weekend, there's a hot air balloon jamboree festival put on by Bluff City Balloons. On the Friday night, they've got a private function there called Special Night for Special Kids, and they're going to have 500 special needs kids and their families there for free night, and light up the balloons at night and give little tethered rides and other sort of carnival activities that are going on there. But I'm going to have 2 custom-made jumpsuits that I guess they're kind of like a modern-day Evel Knievel type of suit. So they're white with some blue and red and some stars on them, and when I have them on display, so these 500 kids can come up and write and draw and sign on both the suits that I'm going to wear on the following days, on the Saturday and Sunday. So then on the Saturday at 5 a.m., I'm going to climb up on top of a hot air balloon, so not in the basket, up on top of the envelope, and raise up to an altitude that no one's really gone before, standing on top of a hot air balloon, I guess. And then once I reach that maximum altitude, I'll just walk off, step off the edge, and skydive back down to the earth. So that's kind of the plan for the Saturday. And then on Sunday, we're going to go up again with about 30 balloons in the morning for a mass ascension, and just go up again and cruise along. So that'll only be about 3,000 to 4,000 feet, but we'll cruise along for 45 minutes sort of thing, flying along with them so all the other balloons can see what's going on. And then that night I'll go up again, just as a bit of an activity for the kids. And again, like, while the balloons are sort of lighting up and everything, 30 balloons are lighting up, I'll be standing up on top of one of those again. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. It's different than the other sort of adventure sports that I've done. Most of in the last 6 years have been ultra endurance events or multi-day endurance events. So this is taking me back to more extreme sports, and it's something new for me. Like I've had to learn how to skydive to do this one, which was interesting as well. And just really like the process of what I need to go through to be comfortable to be able to do that part of this little challenge that I've got coming up on the Saturday.
To say that your challenges were a little different than this is an understatement. I mean, they've been different from each other just as much as they are different from this. This all begs the question on how you got into this. What are you doing this for? This is some wild stuff, man. So that's what you got coming up. Absolute most soonest. But take us back to what started this all off. I know it was a paddleboard trip, and I know it was along Australia's eastern coast. But why do you do these things?
So I went through like a pretty violent childhood for ages of 6 till 9, basically. Like lived on the streets and off and on, and that's what sort of forced me into skateboarding, really, and just anything to keep me out of the house. I started skating at a young age, and I just skate all day and do everything, so I didn't have to really go home. And most of the times I was like sleeping out in storm drains that I would skate, or once, skate ramps and parks started to get built, I'd sort of spend my nights there, really just sort of skate all day and just sleep under the ramps or whatever. And so I've always kind of gone into that side of things, of pushing the limits, and just out of default for what I need to do for as part of survival, I guess. But it was something that was good, and it was ingrained into me at such a young age. But I haven't really appreciated it until, in sort of recent years. Like I'd gone off the rails, off and on, most of my life, and but always sort of pushed the limits and always gone back to sports. And I'd owned gyms and had like a little fighting career and stuff like that. And I'd traveled the world, like training in different disciplines, but always come back to sports. But just still trying to find my place in what was going on, and trying to make sense, I guess, of what happened to me when I was younger, and why I was just spiraling out of control all the time. And I knew I had more in me, but it was just a matter of sort of searching for those answers, and the ways that people were telling me I should go to. The pills, the doctors, the therapists, and all that. They just sort of weren't cutting it for me. It's only so many times you can go to so many people and without having a sustainable result. So it's life got pretty dark for me. And then about 6 years ago, I just kind of thought, what, I'm just to bugger with everyone else, whatever they're saying, and how I should live and what I should be and what I should do and how I should work and how I should dress and all that sort of stuff. So I kind of just went back to my own intuitive ways and just went do it myself, So I pretty much just broke myself all the way back down to my raw foundations and built myself the way that I knew I should be built, and went back to, the extreme sports and pushing the limits and being an athlete again, And that was my prime focus, and that's how I knew I was going to get stronger. And I got back in the water and I was surfing again, and picked up a new sport of paddleboarding. I just really wanted to immerse myself in the ocean because I knew it had some healing qualities. It does so much good for people, but it hadn't really been explained why. So I just really wanted to explore what that was and really have that process, take hold while I was in pain from paddling, and negative emotions from the past were coming forward as well. Just really being out there and be vulnerable to, the elements in themselves, and what could happen to me, but leave everything on the shore at the same time.
And how did that go for you?
There was something, pretty special in it. And so I sort of thought I would just set myself like a little test. So set myself this test to paddle from the Gold Coast down to Sydney. So it's 500 miles, 800 kilometres. And on January 3rd, 2015, I walked down to my local beach with my paddleboard on my shoulder and plunked my 18-foot long by 20-inch wide paddleboard in the water, and I just started paddling, and that was by hand, no paddle or anything, just my hands. And 17 days after being in the water, I reached my destination. But it was something, there was, it wasn't a race, so it wasn't any support in the water or on the land. It was just me and the board and whatever was thrown at me. I trained up about 9 months leading up to it. I got myself in the best physical and mental condition I thought I could be in for it, and just started paddling. But I could never have imagined how my life would change from that paddling, especially after day 5. of the paddle, and how the lives of other people who were living vicariously through my social media posts along the way seemed to be changing as well. So, after 21 shark encounters, knocked off my board by white pointers, circled about 4 times, lost food and water, nearly broke my neck and unconscious underwater a couple of times, dragged across reefs, everything, and no one telling me I had to keep going. It was just me, my determination to do what I set out to do. And then, when I pulled into Bondi and got sucked around into the cove, it was the proudest moment of my life. And it had taken me, 38 years at that time to say that I was proud of myself and I'd really done something I was proud of.
Mm. How did the experience change you?
Changed my outlook on life completely. It was embedded into me, and I'd gone into extreme sports, so I didn't really care if I lived through to the next day, because it was embedded in me that today might be your last day. So just go for hell on it. Just do what you got to do. If you go on snowboard, and just go off that cliff and go for the backflips. Just whatever. But so I'd only look like one day ahead. But after the paddle, I started looking. I look 100 years ahead every day. Is like, people say, how long are you going to live? 100 years. Like, there's no doubt, I just never have a doubt in it. But I live for now as well, but I look for the future of 100 years as well, So I live for now, but plan for 100 years. So that's kind of how I live my life, But after the paddle, so many things that happened in the water that I couldn't explain and no one else really could. So, and because I'd been on these spiral, self-destructive paths most of my life, I really wanted to test out if I thought what had happened, and I wasn't just going to relapse again. So until I started coming out and say, hey, I've just beaten PTSD. I've just done what, hundreds of thousands of dollars of therapists couldn't do. So just by doing a paddle for 17 days. And so I just sort of started testing it out, and I did another paddle. I went to Phuket and I paddled around and then got off and I ran around that. So it was 3 days non-stop until my body completely shut down. I was about 3 miles from my finish line and just completely done. I was standing there for 20 minutes on the sidewalk, just couldn't move, couldn't even take one step. But I wasn't disappointed that I hadn't finished what I'd set out to do. I was more happy because, nothing negative from my past had come up for the first time, and I was in excruciating pain. So with physical pain usually comes emotional pain from your past, and it just didn't at all, So I knew I'd had a bit of a win on that, and I'd gone home, or I went back to my apartment I was staying at. And about 4 hours later, I was able just to hobble around just a little bit. So I got my mate to drop me back on his scooter, and I ended up finishing. Like, it was a 3-day challenge that I'd set myself. And because I was still able to move, I knew I had to finish it and not have that hanging over me that, I was moving and I was able to keep going. So I should have just kept going. So instead, I just went out and just finished it. And again, the people through social media, no one expected me to go back out there. I didn't know I was going to go back out there, the pain I was in. And that event had really changed people's lives, and, with people saying, it's only 3 miles to go. He can do it. I can do it.
That is incredible. So awesome that people were inspired by that. And, it's such a bizarre experience. What did that make you want to do next?
So I knew that, again, there was something pretty special there. And so my next challenge was, I'd set myself, which I guess was always going to do. Like, I grew up skateboarding, always loved muscle cars and history of like Route 66 and everything. So then in 2016, June 27, 2016, I started at Chicago and skated Route 66 all the way to Santa Monica. So that was 56 days, non-stop pushing for about 13 or 15 hours a day. And, I went through storms and heat and just pretty much everything along the way, and navigating my way down Route 66, staying on the old historical part of it, and crossing Mojave Desert. And, there was a lot of challenges on the board, but there's a lot of challenges off the board as well that I had to deal with. But for me, it was just about giving myself 56 days to go from point A to point B, and that's it. Simplify everything and really just think about, what did I actually do intuitively in the ocean to be able to keep on going, and what had changed, and then how can I use those tools while I was on the skate for the challenges that I was facing. And then the next part of it was, all right, how do I break this down in simple form for other people to really grasp a hold of, So just like bottle it up. How could I bottle this up, to share with other people and give them that hope? So I just, it was a tough skate, and I definitely learned how to switch legs, from Mongo to normal skating. And but yeah, as I said, there was challenges off the board. Like I had it with me, and we're filming a documentary, that I was funding for National Geographic to pick up. And it was costing me a lot of money with them, but the whole time the crew was so negative about crossing the Mojave Desert, and that was the part I was looking forward to the most. I'd never really been anywhere that hot for so long, doing such a long endurance event. And so it was something I really wanted to I was looking forward to and really wanted to test myself with. And that whole time they're just like, you're going to die. You can't do it. It's impossible. Someone would have done it before. You're going to die like every day. And like, we got 40 days until we get there. Just like, just let me get through today. So they, I got to Kingman, and then I kind of just had enough. I was 2 days before I was going to do the skate across the Mojave, southern Mojave, and I ended up just had to make the choice of throwing the film away and just fired my crew and got them all like transport back to LAX, and then flew them all back to Australia and just continued the skate myself. And it wasn't an ego thing. It was just I was testing myself, and I knew I could do it. And I just didn't need that extra negativity because I knew how tough it was going to be. So the part they thought I was going to die on, and I could only skate between 8 to 10 miles a day or else I'd overheat, I ended up skating 180 miles in 24 hours non-stop. And I got through to Barstow, and the only reason I stopped in Barstow was because there was fires in the California hills from one of the Route 66 cafes on the hill catching fire from like kitchen fire, and the whole place was burning down and lit up the whole California hills. So I had to wait a night and then get up the next morning and buy a gas mask so I could keep on skating through. So I skated down the California hills while I was still sort of on fire, and then went into San Benito and then skated my way through to Santa Monica. So that was a bit of a push along for me, and again, something I'd always wanted to do. But I just had a lot of revelations on there, and just really found out a lot of things, and ended up creating an evolved form of breathwork and meditation called One Breath Meditation. I wrote a book on it and stuff, and started to put that out also. But then that took me back to Australia, and I still kept testing and still kept pushing the limits and finding out, different ways to process different disciplines, and that's why I like to change the disciplines that I do, because every time I change different disciplines means I've got to learn to train my body and my mind in different ways, but also I'm able to see what's common between all of them in the way of training the body and mind also. Doesn't matter what, whether I'm going 120 foot down underwater or, running a marathon, carrying a mattress or whatever it might be. There's always those crossover commonalities that people I feel people separate in their lives. They work how to get over one set of challenges, but when it comes to another part of their life, it's almost like they've got to restart and work out what those challenges are, even though it's pretty much the same, really. Whether it's relationships, business, physical sense, it's all that.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode.
It's all that same mindset that you need to use and adapt for yourself. So the more you can understand that you can put put it into practice in all sides of your life, well, then I think that, well, for me anyway, it seems to be the easier things can be because I'm already practicing it all the time, testing my challenge myself for whatever it is, So the big challenges for people seem to be a little bit smaller for me, and I just go into everything with that I've got no doubt anyway. I don't think too much about these challenges. I know my purpose and my intentions behind them, and just kind of pick an event that I think would be cool and be able to get the message out there to the wide community and start that very day. I don't wait till Monday to get started. As soon as it's in my mind, my head's there and starting, and away I go.
How do you select what you're going to do next? Because, paddleboarding to pushing a truck to carrying a mattress as you run a marathon, all those things are so random in a lot of ways, but also, your mind must be constantly thinking about what to do next. And how do you decide? How do you choose what to do?
It just comes down to the message is always the same. It's just how can I tell it in a different way to a different audience? So that's pretty much how it is. So the first one was the paddle in the ocean. The ocean, I felt like it healed me and I found my peace. So that's what I wanted to share. So that was a paddle community, surf community. And then the Thailand one was mostly running in it. So, running is the most accessible sport to anyone. You just get a pair of runners and start walking around Bok or start running. So that got to a wider community and a more of an endurance athlete sort of side of things. The marathon runners and the people doing obstacle courses and all that sort of stuff sort of started taking hold. And then the skate was about connecting back with the youth and my roots as well. So, the skate drew in that. And then going back to Australia, it was just, I wanted to involve the Gold Coast community and the local community with what they'd been watching me do over the last few years overseas. So I set up the other one where I just did a big community event, really. I rode a rickshaw bike, and then, we did that push of the pickup truck, and, we just started with a few people on that push, and people were just jumping out of the cars. It was on the radio or whatever. People jumping out of the cars. We ended up like 30 people all pushing this pickup truck down the road that, everyone knew what it was about. We blocked off the whole main road of the Gold Coast with us pushing this truck down it, and then I did a paddle straight after that, and I had this put this big community paddle on, and so it was really people still talk about that on the Gold Coast, so it really made such a great local impact, which is what I wanted. And then the marathon. Marathon was one of the toughest things I'd done. I'd never ran it. I'd ran around an island and stuff, but that was about 85 miles, I think. But
why was that one so tough?
The Mattress Marathon, because it's just like I'd done it on 10. My mate was running it, and I said, you should run the marathon. This is about 10 days out or something, a week out. And I was like, I don't run marathons. I said, you doing it? He's like, yeah. I said, well, you're doing the full marathon? He goes, no, it's just the half. I said, why don't you just do the full? He goes, why don't you bloody do the full? And I'm like, right, right. And as soon as I think I'm going to do something, I'm like, my head just goes, how can I do this even harder? So I said to him, I was like, what's the most awkward thing to carry besides life on your shoulders? And we both looked at each other and said, mattress. When everyone's moving a house, that's the last thing you want to move, that bloody mattress. So I'm like, all right, well, that's it. I'm just going to run and I'll carry a mattress and I'll have a big sign on it saying, never lay down, never give up. And he's like, right, and that kind of come about. I got a mattress the day before, got my mate the upholsterer to put the writing on the side, and then ran this marathon. But I put it like a hole in it in the middle, and I thought I was going to run with it like a supboard. Like I put this pole through it and a hole in the middle, and I thought I'd just hang on the pole on the inside and just run along like a stand-up paddleboard underneath my arm. But because I hadn't had time to train for it, I'd gone about 50 yards and my arm just started blowing up, like hanging on to this 37-pound mattress. So I had to just throw it up on my shoulder, and I hadn't trained for that either. So I just threw this thing up on my shoulder just intuitively, I guess, and then just kept on running. But it was, and then just I'd roll it over my head. I had this good system where every 20 seconds I'd roll it over my head onto the other shoulder and roll to the other shoulder and blah, blah, blah. And just kept on running down like in this marathon with that until I got to about, I don't know, 8 miles, 10 miles, I guess. And I was just like shooting lightning bolts up my calves and up my hammies and in my glutes, like just pulling them every single step that I was taking. I'd have to like nurse them along until I could sort of go into a little jog again, and then they start shooting up again. Because problem was, because I'm a midfoot striker, with the weight of this like mattress and trying to balance the wobbliness on my shoulder as well, I had to flat foot run. So I'm using completely different muscles than I'm used to running with, by carrying nothing. So it was just it was pretty awkward. Like, and I just didn't stop. I knew if I stopped, that was going to be it. Like, I just had to keep on running. So I ended up running the whole thing, and I didn't stop. It took about 6 hours or something to run it, but I got in time before the cut-off time. Like, I even beat some runners out there, even though I was carrying this mattress. But it was just, at the end, it just felt like I was carrying 237 pounds. Like, it was literally just crushing me down. And even though it was only a 6-hour event, beforehand, I was probably bench pressing, let's say 240 pound or something. I was able to bench press. But afterwards, like even after having a rest for a week and refueling and everything, I'd gone back to the gym, and I was probably lucky to bench like 80 pound. Like, it had just taken so much out of me, just that one event, and it's just, but there's other things that happen on these events. Like, I get a bit tweaked out as well on these events, like on the run around Thailand, like afterwards, because I fried myself because it was so hot and I got sunstroke on the first day, and then just pushing myself too much, the nervous system sort of went a bit shot. So for about 7 months, I used to be like epic at maths, like just like a genius at maths, and like knowing people's names and all that sort of stuff. But afterwards, I couldn't count. I became dyslexic and I couldn't remember anyone's name. And my little toe on my left foot was just numb. There was nothing else I could do. It was just numb, completely numb. I was probably numb for about 2 years. So I had to learn how to read and count again and remember people's names. So all that side of things I think come back on, and that's all good. But yeah, it just took a little while and just a little bit of soft training myself just to put my nervous system back in its place a little bit, I think.
Unbelievable. What a random thing to do with a mattress in a marathon. Well, I want to hear too. I know your childhood was very traumatic, and that's a big part of your story and a big part of what you do and why you do it. What happened at the age of 36 or 38 where you decided to do the paddleboarding trip? Like, what happened then, of all things? Why did you decide to do it then?
I was living in a city called Melbourne. I'd just sort of recently gone through a divorce that I was married for about a minute. And I just, I was pushing myself, and I was working hard. I was working 4 jobs, and I was doing everything to make money. I was thinking if I just made all this money, then I could have what I want and blah, blah, blah. But I kind of just was burning out. And because I had more money, I was taking more drugs and doing a whole heap of stupid stuff at the same time. And then it all got too much for me anyway. And I ended up having a suicide attempt. And then luckily I was found like seconds before flatlining. And I was throwing up and everything afterwards. And then right at that moment, it was kind of like a voice in my head. It's actually something my ex-wife said to me. She said this one day when I reached out to her for the first person to talk to about, what had happened to me in the past. She just kind of turned to me and said, "You got to sort your own yourself." And as harsh as that was at the time, that's what kind of rang in my head. This was like a couple of years later, on this. So that's what I did. So I just thought about. What do I need to make all this money for? And I was thinking, all right, if I've got all the money, then I can go back to where I want to live on the Gold Coast. I can start surfing and I can go to the gym and I can train again. I was thinking, why can't I just do that now? I don't need a ton of money. I've got enough now that I'll just go now. So I packed up my car and I left that next day and just drove right to where I needed to be and just got back in the ocean, And again, like I just thought about, a place where I felt at most peace and free and left everything on the shore and it was warm and that was it. I was back on the Gold Coast in the warm waters and just surfing and hanging out with my mates again and, just living more of a natural life, that I thought I should be doing. So that was kind of just the start of it. And then when I picked up paddleboarding and stuff, I just like to set myself little challenges instead of just paddleboarding. I wanted to have more of a purpose to it. And, it was just about telling people, to get down the ocean. It's healed me. And I'd also it's starting to come about now, but back then, even 6 years ago, there wasn't too many men talking about going through sexual child abuse or anything as well. Yeah. So, and even it was sort of strange for me to talk about at the start. So I put it out there and I was like, oh shit. I remember the first little clip I did of it with a mate telling them the story. I went, oh shit, I hope people don't look at me differently now. What I worked out was people were actually looking at me differently, but it was because of how my body language was for the subject. And them hearing about it and going, oh my God, I saw that clip and I'm so sorry to hear. And then I'm like, oh, and then I would sort of cower down like, oh, shit, I don't know how I'm supposed to react to this because this is all new to me, not just talking to one person intimately, putting it out publicly. So people I've known most of my life are coming up going, shit, I didn't know, blah, 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 blah. But then what ended up happening was it was kind of like, you want to buy a new car and you don't see many silver cars on the road. So you think, I'm going to buy a silver car. As soon as you buy one, they're everywhere. The same sort of thing happened with this. I knew it was a bit of an issue, but until I'd come out and spoken about it, I just didn't know how much. And the amount of people that were coming up to me going, I went through the same thing. Thank you for speaking out. I'm worried about my son, my niece, my this, my that. My father went through the same thing. My mother went through the same thing, blah, blah, blah. It's just it's unbelievable, how many people have actually gone through it. They say the numbers back then were 1 in 5. Now they've changed to 1 in 4. That's a lot of people when you're thinking of 8 billion people in the world. I just couldn't stop, and once it was out and I just got comfortable with it and I just accepted this is what I'm going to do, the people I'd been through, all the gurus and the therapists and everything along the way, they hadn't worked it out. So I just kind of took it upon myself to go, right, well, I'm going to work this out for myself. I'm going to have one last crack at it of life and really change everything. So, even though the paddle, I knew there was a high percentage that I wouldn't make it because I was paddling over shark breeding grounds the whole way along. But, I started off the paddle and it wasn't like a suicide mission, but I was willing to die for what I believed in to get this out there. But then after day 5, something completely changed in me. And then I was doing it to live, it was part of my life. And this was that I was able to share with other people, so it became so much bigger than me and the paddle itself, it's just, I don't look at my events as, they're not individual events that I do. One flows onto another. They seem all random, but for me, they got purpose and they flow from one to another. My training flows from one to another as well, and just keep exploring and keep on sharing. Each of them, even though they have their own greatness, and I'm super proud of all of them, but they're just stepping stones towards the next one. And how can I share this more with other people, and what more can I find out about myself and then share that with other people as well? So myself in uncomfortable situations and process how I get out of it, and that's how the skydiving one came about as well.
It is a totally different challenge in a new way, and you know, if you did something else, if you skateboarded again across the U.S., maybe it'd be the more or less the same thing. Different experiences for sure, but you'd know what to expect in a lot of ways. So you're pushing yourself in a totally new direction. That's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Can I ask you this? Do you even to draw it all the way back, when you first started doing these, what was the reaction by the people around you? Who knew you before? Saying like, why are you doing all this? Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the reason why I do these things, and that's the reason why I do these like far out things. Not just because like I don't do it like as I said for an ego thing or anything like that, to be the first person to do this or another world record or anything like that. I don't really care too much about those sorts of things. I like to do things that no one's done before because I can't ask anyone how to do it, and if no one's done it before, I don't even know it's possible. So I've got to process that as well. That, okay, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, no one's done it before, but yeah, I can do this. How do I make it possible? So anytime someone says something's impossible, to me, it's just someone hasn't worked out how to do it. That's all. So, like, Route 66 should have been skated 50 years ago. To me, it just seems like a natural thing. Go skate Route 66. It's the most famous highway in the world, and with all the nostalgia and everything along that, why wouldn't you skate it? You know, but no one else had done it before. But yeah, look, you know, that's why I love doing the different events, and you know, and pushing the limits in that way that for people to ask that question, why do you do it? That's it. That is the reason why I do these things. So people and media and people like yourselves and general people ask, why do you do it? It's like, well, I do it because of this, and I'm able to say the cause. If I was just out there spruiking about the cause and saying the negatives around child abuse or the positives, you know, how to overcome child abuse and everything like that, no one's really going to listen. But you do something that's extreme, people get eyes on, they ask that question, why would you do that? I do it because of this. And they stand up and listen and go, and it's not just because of that, but they take more of an interest in it to go, wow, okay. But also for me, it's, you know, it gives a bit more clarity to people, and it's, you know, it makes it more authentic when I explain to them that you keep on going, you know, you're able to keep going and nothing's impossible. And it's undeniable that I'm able to keep on going, but also to be able to share how I'm able to do that. And it's not just because I'm some freak or anything. It's just I'm putting myself purposely in physical, mental, emotional stress and trauma to work out how I get out of it. And I can share that, and then I'll share that with you in a simple form. I'll go to the extreme so other people don't have to. But, you know, again, it became a normal part of my life when I was a kid, you know, to push myself to that extremes and go through such torturous things that became my normal. But I've just been able to not shy away from it, not block any of that, but instead just twist it around and enhance it and go, I've been through that. And even like the paddle beforehand, it was like nothing can be worse than what I went through as a kid. And then and I'm still here now. So I'm going to do this paddle. The paddle was pretty gnarly though. So now it's kind of like that set my bar pretty high, my standard of pretty high of what normal is also. So, you know, everything I kind of do is related back to there. And it's like, well, I can't be any more, you know, hair raising and crazy than that, you know, and it never will be. You know, there's nothing I'll do in my life that will ever compare to that paddle. And for a couple of reasons. One is that my first event, I'd never done any endurance events or anything like that before. Pushed myself over the years, but nothing really like that. Plus the ocean's, you know, such an unforgivable place, and a place we just, you know, I surf, but not when you're going along for that amount of time. But also, you know, it was the first time I'd really face and I'd overcome my past traumas. And that will never happen again. I'll never have that experience ever again. You know, so that after that day 5, you know, I'll never have that weight lifted off my shoulder ever again, you know, of that self-doubt or anything like that. And so everything in life that I do is just the challenge. But, yeah, I just have no doubt on myself being able to do it. They seem far-fetched for other people, I guess, but that's because they probably just don't test and challenge themselves enough on a daily basis. I mean, we all do. It's just that most people don't process the challenges that we go through when we set ourselves in the day. It's as simple as, should I get a coffee? Should I not? Should I walk across the road here? Should I go up to the traffic lights? Blah, blah, blah. Every time you're second guessing yourself, it's kind of like a little challenge, but people just, take those little challenges for granted instead of, being able to sort of process it a little bit and see how one ties into another. And then when big challenges happen, you already got the tools there ready to go. I mean, most people have been through the worst day and experience of their life, and yet they're still here, but they walls up and still create bigger challenges in front of them, and like they don't have the tools, but they're still here, still kicking along after what they've been through. Then they've already got the tools, they just haven't processed, or they're just not using them, and they're not pulling them out of their pockets when they need to, or they're just over dramatizing it and putting trust into other people rather than into themselves, like looking for other people to get them through rather than looking within themselves of their strength that they've got in themselves to be able to keep on going. I think that's pretty much across the board of everyone in life, but definitely like, adventure challenges, people, they know about that. There's a lot of serial adventurists, endurance adventurists. Like you said, they kind of just do the same challenges. Like they just run, or they run for like multiple days or whatever. And I say that because they just don't really understand what they're running for. There's kind of no purpose except for to do another one. I've just got a bit more of a purpose why I do things. Like I don't need to do any more long endurance events because I feel like I got what I needed out of doing them. I did enough of them to be able to back up why I did it for myself and work out those tools. And then that's why I've gone back to extreme sports also.
Do you know anybody specifically who has been affected by your story and what it has caused them to do?
So I had a mate he actually ran around Thailand with me, and he's ultra runner. He's probably done over 170 ultra marathons, and he went through child abuse as well. And last year, 2 years ago, he ran across America from New York to San Francisco. It took him about 5 months, and he ran like a marathon distance, 26 miles every day, 5 days a week, had the weekend off, and then kept on running. He ran along that and went through, same things, snow and sleet and storms and everything, the desert and all that. And when he got to San Francisco across the bridge, it was like, I thought it was incredible what he did, absolutely incredible. But he was starting to post sort of weird things, so I thought I'd leave for a couple of months. And anyway, after a few months, I turned up at his doorstep. He's from Jacksonville, Florida. And and I knocked on his door, and we just kind of hung out for a little bit. And, I finally said to him, I said, "Oh, so how'd you go, like, with the run?" And he's like, "I feel like it was a waste of time." I was like, "What do you mean, why?" And he goes, "Because I thought when I was going to cross over the bridge into San Francisco, it was going to be like a bubble was burst and, I'd be free from my trauma from my past like you were with the paddle." And he said, "But I wasn't, so I feel like it was a bit of a waste of time." And I didn't want to push it, but just later on, I explained to him why, it was probably, he probably didn't get the result that he wanted to with it. And one was he put too much emphasis on that and too much stress on himself that's what he wanted to happen. And, was kind of waiting for it rather than just processing what he was doing along the way. But also, he'd done over 170 ultra marathons before, so he'd trained in the same place, he'd wore the same shoes, he'd done all these things, and he's used to running 50 to 100 miles in one day in these challenges, yet he was only running 26 miles. Sure, he was doing it day after day, but he was pushing himself actually less than what he was used to anyway. And he was just doing the same thing, So he was trying to get a different result out of just doing the same thing and not reprogramming and not retuning his body, because his body was used to doing CrossFits and going for long runs. He'd done it most of his life. So nothing was going to change. So he said to me, what should I do then? I said, you live down in Florida. I'd just grab a paddleboard and I'd just paddle across the Bahamas. But it's only like 50 kilometers, like 26 miles or something. Just paddle across, but don't tell social media or anything. Just grab a board and just start paddling. When you get over there, just spend the night there, turn around and paddle back. You know, that way it's going to be something completely different. You know, there's don't need to tell anyone about it. You just go and do it. You know, but he would have had to reprogram himself of how to learn these new things, and with exploring to learn a new discipline, you know, your rewiring has to get reset, because you've got to start thinking a different way, and you've got to get out of that tunnel vision to open your mind up to new ways of training and new ways of thinking to be able to go and successfully do what you set out to do.
Did he do it?
He didn't paddle across. He hasn't yet. I think he's a bit worried. He hasn't yet. I'll have to go down there and drag him. I'll grab him and just take him to the beach and go, there's a couple of paddleboards. Let's go for a paddle. You know?
Damien, I got to tell you that I hate to admit it, but that was exactly the experience I was planning on doing this month, was paddling from the Bahamas to Florida via paddleboard or kayak, and I actually had to cancel because we've got a baby on the way.
Right.
But it was right at that threshold where I told my wife, I'm like, hey, I called it off, and she was mad at me. She wouldn't talk to me for a couple of days because she wants me doing this stuff. And I said, I just didn't feel ready. I felt like I needed to get the house ready and just get some stuff together. And now you're making me say I should have done it. No, I got to do it now. I got to do it.
Yeah, you got to do it. But what you should do, you just paddle over there and meet them and then paddle back with them.
There you go.
I think you should paddle there. You should paddle across by yourself. It's only 50 kilometers. You paddle 5. It's going to take you 10 hours to paddle across.
That's not bad at all.
It's not bad at all. Like you could probably do it in 8, because I paddle by hands, and I paddle about like 5 kilometers an hour or something like that. With a stand-up paddleboard with an actual paddle, you're going to be going faster than that. You're probably going 8 or 9 kilometers an hour. So, 50 kilometers. Yeah, you're probably doing it in 8 hours, I reckon. You only need a few supplies. Like you probably only need, I don't know, half a gallon of water or something on there with electrolytes in it, and just some bars and stuff. Just fuel up big time in the morning. Like every morning I would have like 250 grams of rice, 4 bananas, and 6 eggs, and I would just have that and just eat that down until I was nearly sick. And then I'd start paddling, but it lasted me about 4 or 5 hours before I kind of needed anything. So you're nearly halfway across, and you probably just need a couple of nibbles and stuff, and then get yourself across there, and then paddle back with them. Don't even tell them.
Oh man, I love it. Well, I tell you what, let me look and see if they got any open spots, and I'll see what kind of training I can get in and see what happens. Yeah, for sure. Just have you should come join us after you jump off the hot air balloon.
Yeah, I may do. Because once I told him, I was like, oh shit, I wouldn't mind doing that.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. That is awesome. Well, I tell you what. How can people follow along? I got to wrap up here. How can people follow along with your upcoming adventure? Where can they see it or watch it or follow you?
So probably the best way is just to go on my social media. With Instagram's just Damien Rider, DAMIENRIDER, and same with my Facebook as well. So people just go on there. Then we're going to set links up, because on the Sunday we're going to live stream as well while I'm going up and cruising along. So we'll make like a little mini documentary of it, but we'll put out some clips beforehand of the whole thing, so people can see me fumble my way off this hot air balloon. And the whole thing is, I don't even know how I'm going to go getting off. Like you can see how stand up, air cool, standing up, and I'm like, anything could happen while I get off the thing. I mean, it's only blown up with some hot air. that's it. They're pretty flimsy. It's not like it's a specially made thickened balloon that's going to hold my weight. It's just going to collapse. I just have to start sort of tiptoeing across pretty quick until it collapses and I fall off like a slide before it gobbles me up, I guess.
Gosh, sounds awesome. I can't wait to watch it. Well, I tell you what, Damien, you got me inspired, man. I gotta go set some sort of goal now. I gotta get a mattress and find out where I can just carry it somewhere.
Yeah. Mate, don't do that. It's the worst thing I've ever done. It's a fucking nightmare, right?
At least you got something to lay on, though, when you need to take a break.
Yeah, exactly. But, but I mean, like, for all your listeners out there, just test and challenge yourself and have fun with it, The more you're pushing yourself, as I said, the easier or the more that life challenges just sort of fall away to nothing, and what becomes a challenge just seems like a fun learning experience. You go, oh, shit, here we go again,
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I do it. If someone says, this is the hottest chili, you wouldn't eat it. I'll go, oh, yeah, I will. Wait. Like, whatever.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to this show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to grow in the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.